Hello. How is everybody? Hope everyone's all right. Check here if everything's okay. So, welcome aboard. This is another Shortwave radio show. We are live from Montreal, Quebec, Canada, and here to entertain and have fun with radio. It's always a cool moment between radio fans, and hope that you'll enjoy today's show. This is okay here. This is okay here. And here we go. So, been monitoring the CQ Worldwide WPX contest, or as many call it, the Weird Prefix Contest. Been having a lot of fun tuning. I tuned in the space of a couple of hours at least. Well, at least 30 different countries, if not more. It was a lot of fun. 15 meters was open, but mostly open to Central and South America. But it was pretty cool to monitor. And of course, that continues until tomorrow. We'll be talking about the change of schedules coming up. Very important because that is tonight, North America. At 0 hours Universal Time, all the different stations will change frequency. And some even change their times because it's that time of the year when we change schedules for the summer in North America. And for the, if summer in North America and a winter in the southern hemisphere. So it's nice to have everybody on board, and it's always cool to have everybody here as usual. So we will, of course, be tuning around, checking all the different little things, talking about how this is going to affect your shortwave listening. Talk a little bit about the WPX contest, which is really nice. So pretty cool. Just checking the email. We have Elizabeth checking in, saying hello from Regina, Saskatchewan, Canada. And she says, listening as usual. Thanks for all you do. So hello there, Elizabeth. And we'll be, of course, having some tuning the bands a little bit. I have decided to put up the Air Spy HF Plus tonight rather than the SDR Play RSPDX. And of course, I've got my trusty little Texan PL990X right here that I can tune to whatever signal we'll be listening to easily. Right now, it was on the 20 meter band with some stations. So let's just check it out here. There's a ham on 14198. So this is 20 meter band still. 20 meter band on the Texan PL990X. All on the same antenna, the MLA30 antenna outdoors, of course. And we'll be checking that out. Okay, so my name is Gilles. I'm located in Montreal, Quebec, Canada. We are live twice a week with a live show talking about radio. And hopefully you'll enjoy the show today. We talk about mostly everything below 30 megahertz, but sometimes we go above. And so, like I said, my name is Gilles, and I'm in Montreal, Quebec, Canada. We are live twice a week with a show on Wednesday at that's North America time, Wednesday at 8 p.m. Eastern. That's 0 hours Universal time. And we have another show at 4 p.m. Eastern, 20 hours Universal time, in on Saturday. So the 0 UT is on Wednesday, is mostly Thursday for a lot of people around the world. It's just still Wednesday in North America. And to answer a question that I got is, why don't I do two shows at the same time? Well, it's because the different times will favor certain areas of the world more. So by doing two different air times, and I hope to get people from countries that might have a hard time listening because it's the middle of the night at 20 hours Universal time, but might be morning or a decent time for watching at on a Wednesday. So that's why we've been doing the two shows at different times, and hope that you enjoy our shows. Another question that I got also, somebody was saying, well, why did you change on Saturday rather than Friday? Because for that person, Friday was better. Several reasons, and also the fact that I think Saturday was better for a lot of people that had a day off, but also it spaces out the live shows a little more. So, it kind of splits the week more equally in what live shows we get. When we had it on Friday, it was like, Wednesday and Friday, there was only one day in between. Now it's two. It's kind of a little more separated. Some of you would like me to do it maybe on Sunday. We'll see. I'll know to a Sunday possibility eventually. But for now, we're going to keep the schedules as they are. And if we do adjust, we'll let you all know. For now, it's Wednesday, North America. That's Thursday for a lot of people, 0 UT. And Saturday at 20 hours Universal time. Like I said, the CQ Worldwide WPX contest is on its way, and there's a lot of stations on the ham bands to tune around. I use DX Fun Cluster to check out what stations are being logged. QRZ.com and QRZCQ.com. You can check out where a station is from. It's a lot of fun. You can hear countries that you usually never hear on the band, and that I really enjoy. And it's demonstrating that some of the bands are actually open much more than we thought. For example, I had a lot of activity on 15 meters. So, but all to the south, though. 15 meters was really Central America and South America. 20 meters was a mix of a lot of U.S. stations, some Canadian stations up to the VE7, British Columbia, West Coast. And a lot of Europeans also were on the 20-meter band earlier on. So it's kind of cool to see all the stations, all the activity there on the shortwave bands with amateur radio contests. Of course, that does not necessarily please everybody. What is contest for some is for others, it's more of a nuisance because they can't, rack shoot. They can't chat on the ham bands. But you can't please everyone. But at least there's no, that contest isn't there every weekend. So most of the time it's fine. And you got the work bands. The work bands are fine. Why not go to the work bands and discover these little frequency ranges and see what you can get there. 17 meters, particularly, I found it really, really cool. Some of the best DX that I've done on the ham bands was actually on the work bands on the 17 meter band specifically, which is a small 100 kilohertz wide chunk from 18068 to 18168. But it's kind of cool. Nice to have everybody on board, and hope everybody will enjoy the show today. There's a beautiful chat room where you can interact with others and have fun. The chat room, of course, requires a Gmail account for you to be able to join in, but it works and it's great. Also, when all of this is over, we have a Facebook group, has the same name as the channel, official SWL channel. Lots of people posting things they're listening to, late breaking news of shortwave stuff, videos and pictures of their shacks and what they're listening and their new radios. And it's kind of fun to see that people are enjoying radio and having fun. For those that are asking me about my radios that I'm waiting for, the famous little weird SI 4732 based receiver and the Malachite receiver, both of them have arrived in Canada, according to tracking. They've been taking a little more time than they previously should have, and the reason why is both of them have been returned to the seller because they used shipping that didn't want to have a battery on board. So they returned the radios, and they had to reship the radios using another company because it's getting a little difficult to find companies that want to actually send you radios that have batteries that are inside them, because of the batteries actually are now called hazardous material for a lot of shippers, and lithium-ion batteries. A lot of shippers are getting scared of that in case, with all that happened, of course, the batteries catching fire and so on. They're kind of they don't necessarily want to mess with that. So they are both in Canada, which means hopefully maybe this week we'll have something. It depends if it's stuck at customs or not, and we'll see about that. But I can't wait to check it out, test them out. I think it's going to be a lot of fun to see these radios in action. And of course, my own personal comments on these radios, as usual. If you want to say hi and you don't have a Gmail or just don't want to be in a chat room, you can say hello through the email, officialshortwaveradio@gmail.com. And here you'll be able to say hello, and I'll be checking regularly throughout the show. So say hi, and don't forget to include the location where you are, because it's fun to know where people are around the world. So I'll take my first sip, my usual vodka and cranberry juice. Cheers, everybody. So today here in Montreal, it's rather gray, kind of cold. We've barely been going up 4 or 5 degrees Celsius. After a few days that we went up to about 20 Celsius, 70 Fahrenheit, it's kind of a little brutal. And yesterday was yesterday was a stormy day. It was rain, windy. Rain was heavy at times. The perfect weather to stay home, basically, and work from home and do stuff on the radio, which I pretty much did with, of course, the recording also. Friday is the time when we do the recording of the International Radio Report show, Sheldon and me. So, of course, that was also done there, and editing the show and then sending it in to CKUT and all. So kind of a lot of work there to do on Friday usually. So, Matt, MDK2 in Denver, Colorado. Nice to have you on board. 20.2 Celsius. Wow, that's nice. 68 Fahrenheit. M1 MBZ. Nice to have you on board. Kamagzi 1976. Nice to have you here. Rob in Phoenix, Arizona. Nice to have you on board. Michael Thompson. Nice to have you on board from New Jersey. N2NLQ. PA1 SBM. Alex. Nice to have you on board. My friend from the Netherlands. Eric Cottrell. Bonjour. Hi. Nice to have you on board from sunny Boston, Massachusetts. Graham. Nice to have you here from Milton, Ontario. Randall. Nice to have you here from Chicago. We have PLF Radio, bonjour et bienvenue de la France. Toujours un plaisir de t'avoir parmi nous. John McClure, nice to have you on board. Tarek, nice to have you here from Egypt. What do we have? Let me just go down. We have Matt says, I'm sure to get my last tuning of the BBC starting at 05 UT on 6195. Getting a last listen of the Bow Bells intervals. It's easy to forget that Friday night is the last day UTC already of B20. Yeah, because here in North America, it's like midnight is it's I actually a lot of the times people get that mix up of when we advertise something. Like yesterday there was that Paul Walker that had the radio show dance thingy on KSKO via WRMI. And of course, when you're advertised, they always say, well, it's 03 UTC Saturday. Yeah, but don't forget that's Friday night in North America. So it's easy to get mixed up sometimes. René Charbonnier, the Dutch pirate. Nice to have you on board from the Netherlands. Everybody saying hello to Elizabeth. David, KJ4CMY, nice to have you here. Jetcrafter, nice to have you on board from Maine. Joe Tyson, nice to have you here from Apex, North Carolina, KM4WRQ. Tarek, we had good conditions last week. Managed to get Radio Club de Power from Brazil for 885 and send them a reception report. Oh, that's going to be interesting to see if you get a QSL card. I don't believe I had a fee. I have several Brazilians, but I don't believe I have a QSL from Radio Club de Para. I'm not sure. I have a few. Do I have one from that station? I don't remember. If I do, of course, it's from a long time ago. Last time I wrote to a station in Brazil was probably 20 years ago, if not more. So, yeah, time really flies. Dr. Sishab, nice to have you on board. We'll check WWV and CHU a little later. Just remind me a little later to do it. David says, been checking KA4 LMS station. I have a few of them, but a lot of them are on FT8. What else do we have? So Eric says SDR Play put up newcomer videos and redid the website. So if you guys want to learn more and see, they do have quite a few videos that they're posting up to help people use their SDR Play devices. Lee Burkett, nice to have you here from using his Texan R9700DX from the UK. So nice little analog receiver. XN80Xer, Keegan, nice to have you here from Northwest Arkansas. Sunny over there, 77. Wow. We have Tom DXer. Nice to have you on board. Matt, MDK2 currently playing back my overnight recording of Radio New Zealand Saturday night requests. Our Radio New Zealand International. Great way to still fill the still spare days when good DX is hard to come by. It's going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting that what we'll have this summer, because for the last 2 summers? I think for the last 2 summers, Radio New Zealand International been using 13840, which made last summer was magic. I mean, here in the East Coast, Radio New Zealand was the nightly station to listen to every time. And I really, really enjoyed that. It was my summer listening. Reminds me so much of the good old days when I had my summer listening of in the evenings. And I remember my teenage years of summer vacation. In July, I would be listening to my summer evenings of July would be, there was a lot of stations, but some of them that were kind of very summer-ish for me was Radio Australia on 17795, coming in always really well. Back then, they had a nice French language service also on 15240. I remember one of my friends that was also listening to Shortwave at the same time. He didn't speak or understand English, and I would point him towards French language programs. And I remember the evening he would listen to Radio Australia French on 15240. He'd be enjoying that a lot. I remember my summer evenings listening to United Arab Emirates in Dubai, coming in on the 19-meter band, like 15435 or something like that was one of the frequencies. And I was always making it really well in the times of high solar activity. Even if it was dark, it was like always coming in well. What else did I have? So my summer evenings, like there was tons of things to listen to back then too. So it's hard to remember everything, but man, that was so cool. So cool. Bobby Burgess, no problem. Take care. WA5107 SWL. Nice to have you here. Eric Cottrell says they think it's better with the Wednesday and Saturday. So cool. PLF Radio says, I remember when you had a show on Friday and one on Saturday. So yeah, we moved around quite a lot. We moved around the different time slots and days and stuff. One thing for sure, it's nice to have them kind of separated a little more because it gives me also a time off between the shows a little more. Keegan says this morning he had FM Tropo opening to Texas and Louisiana. Wow. Like their sysop 4 meters seems to have activity on it. Yep, that's true. I didn't try that one. SDR Uno has a DX cluster plugin. I need to check that out. I haven't tested it out. Yeah, here in the US, it's 4 meters is not a band. It's really a lot of radio controlled stuff and stuff like that. What is it? Around 70 megahertz, something like that. Daniel, nice to have you on board from Baltimore, Daniel. And he's N3WGH. Nice to have you here. Erica Truss says lithium-ion batteries fires are nasty. Yeah, I know. Carl Icon, nice to have you on board. PNF Radio says, I don't understand these types of batteries are used for smartphones, and these are sent by mail too. I don't see the difference for radios. Actually, it's not just radios. It's everything that contains lithium-ion batteries. A lot of shippers don't want to ship them anymore, so they won't ship phones either. Everything that contains lithium-ion batteries is prevented on a lot of carriers and planes that just don't want to deal with the possibility they might cause a fire or explode or something. So it's really a question of every carrier. So when companies send you a smartphone, when companies send you whatever device, they have to choose the correct carrier that will do it because not all of them do it. Kathleen, nice to have you on board. And tonight is daylight savings time going on in Europe. So now we're forward in Germany, because that also is a mix on the shortwave bands. A lot of stations are actually using daylight savings times and shift 1 hour. Radio Romania is an example. They will shift their program 1 hour because even though they give us their programs on UTC, they follow their own local time when they do their programs. So they'll be shifting 1 hour instead of what was it now? It was like 01. The programs were like 0 and 01 or something like that. Now they'll be 01, 02 or something, or 01, 02 and 02, 03, something like that for English and French. It's that also includes the mix-up, that you try to find. Eric says we need to get Joe some beer. So what else do we have? Rich, nice to have you on board from North Carolina. 81 Fahrenheit. That's perfect temperature to be outside with a radio. And good evening, Mr. M1MBZ. Catalan, as higher you go in frequency, the effect of noise reduces. So, for example, 70 centimeter band is more stable than 2. Actually, it depends. It's not always a true rule. In general, you do notice, and I notice that most of the time here, the electronics and the devices we have that create noise seem to create noise much more on the lower frequency range. The higher you go, the less you notice the effect of the noise around you. But it's not always true. It depends on the devices and the what causes the interference. So this rule can work, but not always. Not always. It doesn't always mean. I don't have. Well, I do have, but I don't. I would say I don't have much interference when I go past. I say starting about the 6 meter band and up, it ain't too bad in noise level here. Actually, it's really below 50, but even more below 30 megahertz that I notice the noise. But even there, I have less noise, say at the 10 meter band that I have in the 80 meter band. But it depends. It depends on the what causes the noise around you. I can tell you that. Alex says, long time no see. Didn't know that you switched to Saturday again. Friday nights were too late for me. Dead tired, so Friday night is early bedtime. Well, we've changed, so you'll be able to join us more. Dr. Sisop says it's 77 in Georgia, 7 in Georgia. Kathleen, it seems like my RTL SDR is an early version, so I'm waiting for the original V3 and a Raspberry Pi Zero. We'll use them both for mobile FT8 reception. Cool. What else do we have? SoCal, it's nice to have you on board from San Diego. Kevin, nice to have you on board from New Jersey. Rain forecast for tomorrow. Was hoping to read a book on Elon Musk, Amazon Prime using the old pandemic excuse. Monday delivery at best. I guess I will check out more radio. Yeah, I ordered. It happens depending on the carrier. It happens a few times. I ordered some stuff on Thursday that was supposed to arrive yesterday, and I got it today, just half an hour before the show started. And yesterday all day they were saying, "Oh yeah, I should arrive before 9 p.m." And then I looked at like 8 p.m. and said, "Oh, it's probably going to arrive tomorrow." But it wasn't even sure. It was not even it will arrive tomorrow. It was a probably will arrive tomorrow. We estimate that. It's like, okay, so you're not sure anymore. One of those things that happens from time to time. I have a boombox on the way because I couldn't resist buying junk. So I was on Amazon. I purchased some stuff on Amazon that I needed, and I stumbled across a Sylvania branded boombox that has shortwave on it. And it was in Canadian dollars, it was $58. So, and it plays, of course, MP3s. It has Bluetooth, and it plays 4-track cassette tapes. So I looked at it and I thought, nah, okay, let's get it. We'll be able to do shortwave videos with that and test out if it's crappy or junk or if it works fine. I still have the boombox, the other boombox that I had here, the J21 U boombox, which is a little iffy. Lately, it's been having audio issues. That is something I always find kind of weird. Don't you guys? I understand a radio wearing out because you use it all the time. That I totally understand that you're wearing it out in some way. But one that I don't understand is a radio wearing out when you're doing nothing with it. That is the mystery that I find in the radio. I got a couple that did that over time. My Grundig S450 DLX, for example, is totally useless. It turns on but doesn't get anything. It doesn't even respond to me tuning around. It's like the CPU is dead. I removed the batteries. I reset it. I did tons of things. It is dead, completely dead. And I mean, that thing, I don't think I've used it more than 20, 30 hours over all the time that that I have it. Let's say I used it 100 hours, even though, which is nothing. Um, that baffles me all the time. Why does something that you don't use stop working? I don't understand that one. And the little boombox that I had also has this weird thing where sometimes there's audio, sometimes there's no audio, and for some reason the recording on tape doesn't work anymore. It plays them, but it doesn't record anymore. When I press, it just records silence. So I don't know. It's one of those things that you're like, yeah, this is so weird. On the boombox, I'm not surprised. I mean, that was what I think that thing cost me $40. I mean, for all that it does, of course, it was crappy inside for $40 with everything that it did. I was not expecting that to really last that long, anyways. But the Grundig S450 DLX and especially, of course, it's not Grundig that made it. It's just the brand that they used. That was a little more expensive. I would have expected that to work better. And I know that the Grundig S450 DLX, I read a lot on it where people have a lot of problems. It seems that the manufacturing of that radio really, really was bad, and the quality control was like inexistent. So a lot of people were complaining they had radios that were already dead when they got it out of the box new. Some said that it broke down like real soon after they started using it. In my case, it worked the first, the first months that I was using it. It worked fine. And now today it's just a dead box. It's sad because it's a beautiful looking big radio. Maybe what I should do is, open it and check the insides. Maybe there's a little cable or a little connector somewhere that's not fine. I mean, right now it has batteries in it. The clock is displayed, but if I turn it on, it does nothing. It displays a frequency, but doesn't get anything. It's kind of weird. And last time it worked, I started like playing with the knobs a lot and kind of banging on it a little bit just to see if it did anything. It came to life for like 10 minutes where I was kind of receiving signals, but tuning was almost impossible. And then it went back dead again. So it's kind of a very, very bizarre thing that happens. But anyways, that electronics or that devices that go dead while you don't use them, I don't understand that one. There are a few exceptions why I understand some things. For example, I would understand that something that is mechanical, that's not used at all, could for some reason jam, or like anything that has these um um like a VCR that has um man, I forgot the name of that thing. So anyways, it needs to move all the time, because if you don't use it, it will actually kind of bend or keep a shape that's not like even the rollers and stuff like that, because they're made of rubber, will often will kind of get a dent if you leave them in a one position all the time, and that are going to do some weird playback issues. Or even in environments with a lot of dust, and when it's dry, or anything that has rubber can actually kind of become hard and brittle. That I understand that over time, and especially when unused, can sometimes be a problem because there's a lot of stuff that actually works better if you use it all the time, especially mechanical stuff. There's a lot of those things that there's some um, devices that using it every day is actually a good thing because the lubrication goes into all the parts while you use it, which means that everyday use, you actually are helping the device rather than wearing it out. And I have one here, a tape deck from Sharp that I had, and I didn't use it for, man, it stayed on the shelf for like 6, 7 years. And one day I looked at it and said, "Hey, I should check it out if it still works." And when I tried it out, one of the tape decks I could hear like it was very, very wobbly, and the sound was trembling. So you could see that, the rollers and the fact that they didn't do and didn't work for such a long time it was having a hard time come back to life. And the other tape, because there's two tapes on the tape deck, the other tape drive just didn't want to work at all. It was like, whoa, okay. You hear the motor, but you don't see anything moving. So it's like, okay, something's wrong in there. So there are things like that that I kind of understand that not using it for so long can be an issue. But when it's just electronics, where there's really not much moving parts, that I have a hard time understanding why it stops working even if you don't use it. Dr. Sisop, his ICOM IC 7300 goes up to 84 megahertz, so you can go and check that out. What else do we have? Frank. Oops, I lost the place that I was, like usual, of course. I always lose my spot. Let's just go back up. So, okay, I'm here. So we have Frank McCloskey. Nice to have you here from Lower Alabama. RTM, nice to have you here from the Napa Valley, California. Every time I read Napa Valley, I always remember the good bubbly wine that we purchase. Comes from that region. King Shane, nice to have you here from the UK. Yeah, it's possible. Different regions have the daylight savings times and the rollback at different times. And what else do we have? Bill Curry, nice to have you here. And 8UUP, nice to have you on board. Says nice to finally get a break from work and join the stream again. That's cool. Welcome aboard, my friend. PLF Radio, is that SDR Sharp? No, that's SDR console that I'm using actually behind me. SDR console that I'm using with the AirSpy HF Plus Discovery. Chris, nice to have you here. G7VEO. Clocks go forward an hour here, so I think there's an hour in CQ contests or I follow the GEL UTC clock. Yeah, and that means you guys in Europe. Yeah, that's true. You guys in Europe. Oh, that's a sad thing for Europeans because that means every contester in North America gets the full 48 hours of contesting. And you guys in Europe actually get 47 hours because you got the time change. Huh. That's interesting. I never thought about that. Keegan, in February 2017, there was a proposal for Wisconsin to stay in standard time, but that fell through. Yeah, here they talked about it here in Quebec, but the rule for it to happen is that the state of New York and the province of Ontario need to also stay put. If New York and Ontario can agree on staying at the same time all year, then Quebec will actually do it. But they said if Ontario and the state of New York don't do it, we're not moving. We're continuing the way we are now and changing our times. And there was kind of talk about it like last year. And for some reason, they don't talk about it anymore, as if it's just like not a priority anymore. Hector Vasquez, nice to have you here from Los Angeles, California. Graham says, heard in the park near me in Milton, Ontario, V5 IMW from Namibia on a Texan 990X with the whip antenna. Wow, that is so cool. That is so cool. Really, really nice. Or V51, maybe. That's nice. Namibia. We don't hear Namibia that much on the bands, I can tell you that. So weird. What else do we have? What else do we have? What else do we have? Tarek says yesterday Gander Vomit and Rostov Vomit were very well picked up in Cairo. I never heard the Rostov Vomit. One of those Russian stations. I've never heard them. So pretty crazy. Dr. Sisop had radios made in Taiwan, wore out by not use them. Yeah, sometimes I always tell everybody, use them because they're wearing out anyways. Molecules dry out. M1 MBZ said some components oxidize and fail over time. Yeah, it could be, or some can become shorted. It's weird. It's weird. Because it's obvious it's lack of quality, because look at how most electronics just work. I mean, look, I'm looking at my Commodore 128 here and the Amiga 500. These are 30 years old, 35 years old, and they work. They turn on, and I have radios that are, look at that Grundig in the back here. That radio's more than 50 years old. Still works. It's really, I think, a question of whatever parts they used were really, really crappy. I know that there was I don't know today what happens, but I remember reading some devices that were created, or some electronic devices that were made in a certain area of 2000 to 2010 or something. There's a big batch of bad capacitors that actually were sold back then, and a lot of devices that that used them actually failed prematurely, for sure. So it's a little weird. So it's possible that electrolytic capacitors dried out, but man, come on, modern caps today, pretty crazy. Capacitor plague, yeah, I know. Keegan says he had his Grundig S450 DLX radio since August 2012. First FM DX radio, first FM DX on June 1st, 2013. Radio still works. Maybe I should check it out tomorrow. Maybe I should take out the cover and go and look at it. But man, this is crazy. This is crazy. I want to open up my, I don't know what to do. I have a Macintosh Plus with its hard drive that has Mac OS 7 on it. And the Macintosh Plus actually worked well for a while. Now, when I turn it on, I hear the beep, and it kind of resets, and it's always beeping, as if it's always kind of resetting every time it tries to start. So I was looking at videos yesterday of Macintosh Plus restoration videos, but a lot of them seem to say that there's a lot of those that actually have bad capacitors and all sorts of things over time. Yeah, I know that some parts do wear out over time. Capacitors are probably I would guess, the number one problem in electronics over time, because they, they're like tiny batteries, basically. They recharge, they discharge all the time. So, of course, over time, that could be a problem. There's also the fact that some of them, of course, can dry out, and all sorts of things can happen in them. But you still look at. I think it all has to do with where all of that comes from. Where did they buy? What was the manufacturer of these capacitors? Because there's a lot of devices that stand the test of time, and capacitors are still good 30, 40, 50 years later. I think the manufacturer of the parts, sometimes they want to save, and they're going to get that manufacturer that's going to get you some discount on, if you buy 10 million capacitors, we're going to give you a discount. Yeah, well, maybe you should buy the capacitors at full price at the other guy, because maybe that discount is hiding some flaw. So it's kind of weird. But yeah, maybe I'm going to take it. Oh, I'm going to open it tomorrow. And if I am to open it, I am going to make videos. Yeah, I think you guys would probably like to see what does it look like inside. And we'll see if we can do something, bring it back to life or something. It's nice. It's beautiful looking radio, the S50 DLX, but has great sound too with a big speaker. But we'll see. We'll see. But I know that model had a lot of quality control issues. So at first I didn't see any problems. A lot of people are complaining, well, it doesn't work. And the first year of use probably was, I didn't see any problems. Then I left it in the shelf for 7 or 8 months without using it. And when I took it out, because it was, I told you guys I do a rotation of all the radios. So when I look at my shelf, all the radios, all the good radios or decent radios get some airtime, some playtime, because I want to make sure that I use them. For me, radios, it's nice to have a radio collection, but it's not just having radios on a shelf. I don't like that. I always think that anybody that has radios on shelves because they find it cute but never use them, no, that I want to use them. I want them to actually work. So I do a rotation, and every amount of time, I look at my radios. I'm like, oh, that one didn't work for a while. Let's take it out for a run, for a spin, and then it's going to be my radio for a few weeks, and then I'll change with another one. So that's what happened with that one. Is I looked at the radios and I was like, oh, I haven't used the S450 DLX in a while. Let's take that out. And it was last summer, I think. And I turned it on and it was like, what the hell is happening? It doesn't work anymore. Pretty crazy. Kathleen says, any news on the Malachite? Today managed to use RSP1A on Android tablet with easier touch. Yeah, it's in Montreal somewhere. It should be there at some time. So I would guess it will show up in my mail soon. So actually I have these two radios plus the boombox, the cheap boombox that we'll see what it looks like and how it works. Honestly, it's really for just the fun of it, because anybody that would say, hey, I need a shortwave radio, that boombox looks cool, I will probably say, do not buy this for shortwave. Let me just show you guys what it is. But I would probably never tell anyone to buy any of these radios for shortwave listening, and even for you still can get Panasonic boom boxes and Sony boom boxes. They still exist, and of course, they don't have shortwave, but just for listening to your old cassette tapes, I would go towards a brand like that, a Panasonic one, for example, much more than anything else. That only has AM, FM, and the ability to play tapes, and that's it. Erica Truss says the Sony 2010 will not work unless it has 2 good AA clock batteries installed. So that's weird. What I'm gonna do, because I see the clock is on, I'm gonna remove the batteries from inside and let it without batteries. Let it just stay there without batteries, because sometimes it's a simple glitch, like the CPU is like stuck, and unless it really gets to zero because of with the power completely out and the capacitors discharged, it doesn't want to work well. A lot of radios had actually displayed that problem today. Anybody that has a portable radio, and it's not, somebody the other day was mentioning, it was like, oh, Texan receivers, they do this, they do that. These are Texan radios, only do that. No, every single receiver that I've owned, whatever brand, when they get a little complex and they use a small CPU in it, you get to a point where, it's time to remove the batteries for 24 hours, and you'll see things are going to come back to life and should work fine afterwards. And I've had that happen with a lot of radios, and a lot of them were not Texan. It's a question of sometimes, you might be touching the radio. It's something. This week I got a little scare on my Texan PL990X because we had some really nice weather, but it was extremely dry, which is unusual for Montreal. So at one point, my weather station was showing that there was 20% humidity out there. So 20% humidity in Montreal is like, we don't see that very often. It's, we're an island surrounded by water. It ain't that dry usually. Hey, look at that Iona sound that just passed through the 40-meter band. So I was playing around with the Texan PL990X outside, and by moving and the friction with my chair, when I touched the telescopic, I zapped the telescopic and I actually heard it. And the first thing that I thought was, whoa, I hope I didn't blow up, the amplifier of the radio. It seems that it survived without any glitches, but that tells you, before you touch the telescopic of your portable receiver, touch something to ground yourself, anything metal, because that could have zapped the radio, and it could have rendered the radio totally useless. It's hard. It's hard to understand sometimes, but remember that when that thing zaps, it might not be a very high current, but it's hundreds, if not thousands of volts still that went into the device. It could easily zap a transistor or any component. So we got to be careful with that. And I often see people complaining that the radio became deaf or had issues. And I can bet you, I'd be curious to see, of everybody having radio issues, especially with portables, how many of them, without even knowing, zapped the transistor or something within their radio because they had a static shock on the telescopic. We might be surprised at the number of radios that went deaf because of that. Dr. Sissa, my Grundig Ethan satellite display all garbled now as they used a bad LCD on it, but still works like a charm. Yeah. One thing for sure is that the Grundig brand, since that company stopped making radios, is not, it's not Grundig. It doesn't have the Grundig quality also. Mickey Delnage, nice to have you here from Shorewood Park, Alberta, Canada. Jay Gilbert, nice to have you here. Jace from Melbourne, Australia. Pretty cool. Kathleen says, talking mechanics and radios reminds me when I opened a radio and found that the needle was moved by some wire and pulleys. Oh, yeah. And some of them actually have it so complex. Some of them you look at the needle, the wire, and all the pulleys, and you're like, okay, if I disassemble this, how do I put it back up in working order? It's like, yeah, rubber belts. That was the word I was searching for, belts. I don't know why I forgot belts. Mobile Armored Strike Command finally separated all the QSL cars I have into 4 categories: individuals, clubs, 1x1, special events, and parks on the air. Cool. Eric Cottrell says rubber belts and drive wheels can dry out and harden. Yeah, that's what happens. I remember one tape drive that I had. It had not worked for years, and I pressed the play button, and all I heard inside was a loud spack. It was like something mechanical, so a belt or whatever just gave out. And I would guess, like for example, in the wintertime here in the apartment, it's extremely dry, and I don't have a humidifier, which probably I should have. And I would guess when a radio and when even, anything that is mechanical spends too much time with, 20-25% humidity levels only, it could maybe accelerate the demise of the device. When the humidity level is more like 40-50%, it kind of keeps everything a little more, I don't know. And anything that can dry out has less of a success of drying out, actually, because there's more humidity around. So I'm guessing that maybe some of the devices sometimes that are plagued here with problem over time might be because it's too dry inside. And in the wintertime, there's not a lot of dust, although there's always dust in the home. But since I often open the windows in the summertime, of course, a lot of dust gets in. So in some cases, mixed dust and humidity. In some other cases, mixed dust and very dry conditions. And you got the perfect conditions for having problems, Dan, nice to have you here. Wishing for sunspots and 8 WJZ from Ohio. Nice to have you here. Jacob, have you ever used the ILG shortwave database? Can it be used with DRSPDX like the EIBI database, and would it be worth a small charge incurred? I've never used. Well, I've seen it, but I've never really used it. And for that to work well, you need to have a specific software that is meant to be able to use the database the way it is. So it depends what you're using. It depends what you're using. Whatever happened to the shortwave beer I had? I drank it in a live show a long time ago. Keegan is showing where he's posting his FMDX logs. Big FMDX fan. Cool. IG Sparkling, or LG Sparkling, says UZB76. Oh, UVB, you mean. UVB 76 4625 kilohertz. Yeah, it's getting into that. We're in April? It's getting to that time where I need to try to listen to it like April up to mid-May. But when we'll get into summer, I'll be late. It's true, Mickey Delmage. It's UTC, so everybody gets 48 full hours, technically. Yeah, you're right. If you follow UTC rules, yeah. You just don't care, actually. You just don't mind your local time. That's true. I don't know why I thought about different. There's nothing different. Absolutely. So, yeah, you're right. What else do we have? Yeah, apparently it's coming, Catalan. The next big version of SDR Uno is supposed to be multi-platform. Supposed to be Linux, Mac, and Windows. So that's something that I think a lot of people will be looking forward to. One of the problems with in a world dominated by Windows, that's the problem when you are not in the majority. It's difficult. It's a tough one to get everything working and working properly. And you end up, envying other people because you're like, well, yeah, you got that cool software that I can't get because I'm on a Mac or I'm on Linux or whatever, So hopefully, some of these software will come to multi-platform. What else do we have? Tristan Mills, nice to have you on board from he says British Columbia, Washington, Oregon, and California all want to stay on summertime, but it requires U.S. Congress approval. Okay. KW1161, nice to have you here from Tucson, Arizona. The new version of Fran plugin does support the ILG radio database, Eric. Oh, that's good news. So thanks for talking about it. And I need to reinstall my Fran plugin here on my new setup. I haven't taken the time to reinstall that. So it might be a good idea to have that database after all. Philip Razio sharing the solar flux of 77, K index of 1. K index of 1 is nice. So 77, it could be worse. It could be like 65. 77 is still a little higher. Zach Shack Radio. Nice to have you here from Central Alabama. Kel King. Nice to have you on board. Says Xbox consoles of 2010s were a victim of those bad capacitors. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Carl Icon. Sylvania today is the same thing. Just a brand name. It's just they're using names that existed in the past that have nothing to do with what these companies were. That's for sure. I mean, I purchased it, but honestly, I think over all of my life, everything I purchased from Sylvania always was crappy. There was a couple of brands like that you would purchase and you would like, yeah, I know it's a crappy brand, so I'm buying a crappy device, but you knew it, you knew it. I remember a brand we don't see today that I remember seeing here, at least. I don't know how widespread they were. Citizen. Every time you'd buy a Citizen branded electronic thingy, it was the crappiest thing in the world that never worked very long. And these were very popular because they were cheap compared to a lot of other stuff back then in the 80s. Mad Radio DXer, nice to have you here from the UK. And LG Sparkling is from Brazil. Cool. Nice to have you here, my friend. Callan at a ham radio flea market. I've got a Tektronic 500 megahertz oscilloscope, 25 euros 2 years ago. Because one channel was broken. In that model, the capacitors are leaking and affect the board. Erica Trell, I wonder if the problem with the Mac Plus is the clock battery is dead. No, because it didn't have the clock battery when I got it. And it's still powered up. From what I understood on the YouTube, I saw 4 or 5 YouTube videos, restoration of the Mac Plus. And they all center on 2 major problems. One is bad solder joints that you need to check out. and the other one is bad capacitors. So usually, most of them, what they did is they opened it's so spaced out on that board that even though my skills of soldering are not that good, everything's so spaced out that I was just looking at a video and I was like, yeah, I think I can do that. I think I can, and actually I looked on eBay. There's a guy selling a bag of capacitors, replacement capacitors for Mac Plus. So it contains every single capacitor you need to replace in the Mac Plus. So I was like, oh, okay, that's interesting. I could buy a bag of capacitors and, as a weekend project, taking the time to change the capacitors. Maybe it's just that and everything's going to come back to life. But the biggest problem that they said was not often seen, but when it was that problem, it was not worth it to get it fixed, was the flyback of the CRT, because, it's a black and white screen is in that thing. And every single video I think that I've seen, they said if it's the CRT's flyback that's gone, forget it. You're wasting your time. It's going to be impossible almost to get it back running. So it depends. The worst part is I should never have done that because I had two Macintosh Plus. One that I had, I found it was in the garbage. I was taking a walk and I see the Macintosh Plus with the hard drive in a garbage. And I'm like, wow, okay. And it has everything, the keyboard, the mouse, which apparently is impossible to find. So I brought it home, plugged it in, and it worked. It was working. It was booting up on OS 7. So I was like, wow, this is so cool. I'll have an old Macintosh Plus with it's 40 megabyte hard drive, which is as big as the computer itself. And what happened is I know an hour it would reset and reload the operating system, and it would do it more and more. So that probably was a solder joint. Probably as the computer became hot, one of the bad solder joints, the contacts wasn't good and it was resetting the stuff, or it could even be capacitors. And one day I was walking and I saw another Macintosh Plus, like in the space of 6 months. So I was like, wow, okay, another one in the garbage. It was in the garbage too. So I brought it home. That one I plugged in and it worked fine. So what I thought is, I'm going to get rid of the other one and I'm going to keep this one. It works great. Problem is, I got rid of the other one, which I should never have done because I could have just exchanged the boards. Sometimes you got to think when you do stuff. But also it's because of lack of space. You can't keep 8 copies of the same thing in an apartment unless you want to be, under tons of crap. So what happened is I after about 3 months of use, that's when it just didn't want to boot anymore. I was like, okay, doesn't boot anymore. At least the other one booted, but had that reset thing from time to time, So anyways, sometimes you learn from what you do. 73 KW 1161. What else do we have? Chris 66. Nice to have you here. Daniel, I switch out my amateur radio transceivers every 3 months. The FT 1000 MP is my favorite radio of the 6 transceivers. Cool. And it's kind of cool sometimes to cycle through the radios we have because it feels kind of renews the hobby a little bit. It's like, I'm using radios I haven't used in a while. Feels different. And each radio has this little this little something that's kind of, you like, and of course every radio has the good and the bad. But there's always a little something that you're like, oh yeah, I remember this radio. I like it for that reason. This radio is cool for this other reason. You know, it's kind of cool. Jerry DX, nice to have you on board. Bad Radio DXer says the first radio I had with shortwave was a boombox. This was back in the 80s, though. Yeah, a lot of boomboxes from the time did actually get shortwave bands at the time. A lot of the radios. I remember a friend of mine. My first boombox was a realistic, and it didn't have shortwave. It was an AM/FM only. But boy, I used that boombox until its last leg. I mean, if you want to talk about a boombox that got used, abused over and over again, that was man, it lasted a good 8 years before I had to get rid of it because it was really, really worn out. And I remember it had great sound. Everybody was like, "Wow, your boombox sounds great." Yeah, but it's getting old. And but a friend of mine had a Sony boombox, which was a huge one. He had a really big Sony boombox. And we would go up north to my dad's shack. We didn't have electricity. And what we would do is use an old car battery because it had a 12 volts jack on the side for power. And of course, we didn't put D batteries in that thing because we didn't even have batteries for a weekend listening to tapes. And of course, we were alone, and we were young and alone. And the nearest neighbor is like kilometers away. What the hell do you think you do? Have beer, talk, and put that boombox at really high volume level. That's what we do as teenagers. So what we had done is that he had an old car that the battery was dead, but dead is very relative. Dead is, it's dead for a car use, but it's not dead as a battery for something that doesn't use that much power. And so what we would do is he would always kind of bring, every time we would go to the shack up north, he would bring that radio and bring the car battery. And we would plug on the car battery. And even though the car battery was not good for a car, it gave us, I remember once, I think we spent a week there. And that battery gave a week of electricity to the radio. For that type of battery, that radio didn't consume a lot of power, even though it was dead, it was still good enough for that. So I remember we every week that we went there was a period of time we went up north every weekend for 6 months. And every weekend was the same thing. We would bring down the boombox, the battery, we'd spend the weekend, the shack, have fun. And most of the summertime we'd go to the beach on one of the rivers there. Hell of a good time. Great place to be. And Sunday night we'd pack everything, pack the battery. He would charge the battery with his car battery charger he had at home, so that every time he would bring it back, it would be full charge for whatever it could be. And it was great. But it happened. So that guy a few times had friends that I didn't know much at another place, not that far away, maybe 20, 30 miles away from the shack. But because he was a heavy drinker, so what happened is, when he went to his friends, I would always tell him, if you go to your friends and you drink, you don't take your car. Come back tomorrow. Sleep there, because you don't want to. You never know what could happen. And I had a few times. I remember once we went there, and I was with another friend. We went there, and we went to see a concert at Mont Tremblant, and we came back very late. It was probably 2, 3 in the morning, and we were on this really isolated road. This is the most. I mean, if you want to be traumatized by something you see, I think that was one of the highlights of being traumatized about something. So we're coming back on the little country road, which has almost no traffic. You could actually be on that road and have nobody cross that road for 2 hours in the middle of the night. We're not very far from the shack, and we see ahead, we see a car, and then we notice it's like, oh crap, the two cars hit each other head to head. It was something. The speed at which one of the two cars was going was probably very high. We got out of the car. Nobody was moving in either cars. I even think in one of the cars, the guy was probably dead. I still remember all the blood in his face and the dashboard. Like, you don't look too long because you're just like, oh shit, okay, I don't want to look at this anymore. And on the other side was that was probably what was the most sad about it. It was a family, so it was probably like mom and dad and the two kids. And back in early 80s, the seat belt was not something that was very popular yet. It was starting to get on because there were laws, but it was not yet popular. And everybody was like smashed in the car. It was like crazy. I remember telling my friend, I said, look, I ain't going to look because I can't. This is too heavy. But I do notice that the woman is breathing. She is breathing. She's just completely passed out. So first thing that we did was take the car, and I like, okay, so the nearest neighbor is 4 miles that way. And I know that they are there because they live here. They're not here just on the weekends. They live here. So we went there, and it was complicated because, it's like you're in the middle of nowhere and there's nobody around. So, when we rang the doorbell first time, it's like nobody came. And then we knocked and knocked, and we continued knocking until somebody answered. And when, she opened the window just a little bit to look at us, and it's like, yeah. It's like, yeah, look, there's an accident over there, and I think there's somebody dead, and it's like a big mess, and really there needs to be an ambulance and and the cops. And of course the question, because that was the problem over there, it was very small, and everybody was like very in a basic form over there, and I knew they had electricity, so I thought, well, they must have a phone. And I said, do you have a phone to call the cops? And it's like, yeah, okay. So we called the cops from there and everything, and then we just we spent a little bit of time there, kind of trying to see if we could at least prevent another car that would be coming in, because these little roads, everybody lives in those places, like they go like real high speed because they know all the curves and everything. And one of the things I said is, this is dangerous because it's in the middle of the road still. Somebody can just smash into them, make it worse. So we stayed there until the cops arrived, which took, an hour. And we told them everything about, we saw that while we were coming in and so on. We don't know what happened. It was already like that back then and so on. And then we left. But that was a traumatizing experience. But anyways, the boombox. So I would tell to my friend, if you drink, you don't come back drunk. Don't use the car. Sleep there. I'll spend the weekend alone. It's all right. I love to be there, anyways. And he had shortwave. That Sony boombox had shortwave, and I remember I would turn on the radio and I would tune in, and I remember specifically because a lot of the times was weekends. I would search for HCJB so I can tune to the DX party line from that place, which was for me a lot of fun. But was kind of cool. Charles, does the sync work on the Texan PL330? Which radio does sync work on? It works, but it's not great, honestly. The best sync that I have in any radios here is the Texan PL680. It actually is decent on that one, but I think the best sync capabilities of any radios are the Sony ones, like the Sony ICF 7600. It's crazy. Man. So Mobile Armored Strike Command says, on average, a single static shock has a voltage of approximately 25,000 volts. That's a lot of volts. Sergio Cordero bought the Texan R9012. The tuning knob is so stiff, and I get some stations and with better audio on my XH Data D328. How can I check if something is wrong with the Texan? Remember that it's a basic radio, and remember that it does still need, it's okay, but it's not a DX machine either. The Texan R9012 at the price that it is. So honestly, it's really just that's why each radio is at that price range. Each radio has its own little thing. My tuning knob it's a little stiff, but it's not that stiff. It's not stiff to a point where it should be tough to tune around. But remember, it's a basic radio, so. Matt says there's not going to be a whole lot of sense having time zones of each state go on its own way. Yeah, that's the thing. That's the thing. That's why Quebec refuses to change if Ontario and New York doesn't, because they are the connecting, New York's the connecting state, even Vermont and Ontario, which is a big, the big province next to us that we do a lot of stuff with. So the first thing that they said is, well, if these guys don't change, we're not going to change. We're not going to have that 1 hour difference because just for the fun of it. Rich, that's why I love the idea. We're using insulated wire wrapped around telescopic, not touching bare metals. Yeah, absolutely, and it works fine actually. And the coupling that it does, it works great actually. James Johnson, WA4493SWL. Nice to have you here. Mark Elford, nice to have you here from Vancouver Island, British Columbia, Canada. Jean-Marc Letz, bonjour et bienvenue de la France. Nice to have you on board. And moving to his new flat on March 30th. Hope you have good DX from there, actually. James Johnson says, I caught some of the discussion about radio knobs and pulleys and complicated designs to move them. Oh, yeah, some of them are just crazy. Hey, Shelly, nice to have you here from Southeast Pennsylvania. Thomas Lane, nice to have you on board from Grand Rapids, Michigan. Parag Nolan, nice to have you here from Ireland using his Riesu FRG7 and the Texan PL880. Great radios. Great radios. James Johnson says, this is why my Alley Crafter radio is down. Still can't find proper string to get the thing to turn. Must be all natural string and can't find it. So what happens is the knob turns and the string doesn't. Yeah, because it probably does have a lot of if you don't have the proper string, it can actually slide rather than actually move with You should look at I don't know where you could find replacement for that, and check out. You know, there must be some radio stringing videos online that maybe can help in finding the proper material and way of doing it. RJDA Dakota, nice to have you here. WA0113SWL, nice to have you here. Yeah, well, like a lot of stuff today, most of what we have is done in just a few huge manufacturing plants. Yeah, the watches, but the watches are more expensive. The Citizen watches are kind of expensive compared to the electronic stuff that they were making back then, which was kind of not in the same game, basically. Hunter's Handicrafter's Kitchen. Nice to have you here from Massachusetts. He owns 3 Zenith Transoceanics. In amazement at what sellers are asking from them on eBay. They are beautiful, and I totally agree. No way they are worth the price that those are asking for it, for sure. David, EA3IEK, nice to have you on board from Barcelona, Spain. Kevin, have you ever priced out your radio collection value? I look at some of the old radios I own and threw away in the 80s, and I am amazed. I don't buy radios and have radios for money purposes. It's a collection for the fun of it, and for me, it doesn't have a money value. It has a personal value. It's different, you know. So I never really thought of my radios in that sense of the value that they could have depending on the model and so on, you know. RJDA Dakota says I had a Sanyo boombox and also a Toshiba. They both had shortwave bands, and I did use the shortwave bands. Back in the day, we had gone camping and listened to KUSW or WRNO. Yeah, WRNO Worldwide, Rock of the World. Log 2112, nice to have you here. What else do we have? Log 2112 says, decided to give the SDR Play a rest today, working with the R75. That's cool, and it's nice to have all of that and to try different things. I tuned my ICOM CRD 500 the other day, and it's a different feel, a different way of doing. And when you haven't done it for a while, it's kind of fun. It's kind of fun actually to go back to those radios. And I mean, the R75 is a great receiver too. David, I'll be there just after the show. Can you wait till the show ends? And I'll be there for the barbecue. I'm eating chicken, homemade chicken hamburgers tonight. Crispy chicken hamburgers. So I think that's gonna be good. TVDX, bonjour. Oui, ça va bien. J'espère que tu vas bien toi aussi. What's the prefix of St. Lucia? Oh, man. Good question. St. Lucia ham prefix. St. Lucia ham prefix. J6. So you should have a J5 for Guinea-Bissau, J6 St. Lucia, J7 Dominica, J8 St. Vincent. So that's what I see here. J6. Yeah, DX Party Line. I tuned that. I would tune that and listen to the DX Party Line. And what I would do, because there was a Saturday lineup on HCJB back then, and what I would do is I would listen to. I remember that the Saturday lineup I liked was Musical Mailbag and DX Party Line, and so that was kind of cool. And Musical Mailbag, they always had food, so they were always chewing on something, and everybody would bring food, and they would play some of the and they would read listener letters and play Ecuadorian music in between, which I found kind of a nice mix to have, like, a gang of people having fun, talking about recipes and reading letters from listeners, and playing Ecuadorian music in between. It was kind of a nice mix of a mailbag show, I thought. And then there was the X Party Line, which was, of course, the show I listened to, and I really, really enjoyed. And I mean, back then it was like, you start shortwave and you get to a point where you listen to that. For those that don't know what the DX Party Line is all about, this is a little example of the DX Party Line on HCJB in Quito, Ecuador, which still is heard, by the way, on 6050 kilohertz, the last frequency left that is from Quito, Ecuador, or from Ecuador. But they used to be a major shortwave broadcaster. So here is a little excerpt of what.
This is a program for DXers by DXers and about the DXing hobby. We invite you to stay tuned for the next 30 minutes to the DX Party Line. It's Monday, time for another Monday edition of the DX Party Line. I'm Clayton Howard, your host.
I do remember that they had a Monday one.
Later in the program, and this is rather a difficult or hard, I don't know quite how to describe it, program for us, because as you may realize, some of you I'm sure have heard that we'll be leaving Quito soon, and this is the last time that we'll be hosting a DX Party Line. It's going to be hard for us. We're going to miss being on the air twice a week for DXers and shortwave listeners. But we do appreciate all the contacts we've made, all the friends, and your contribution.
So that's a little part of that was the last show, by the way, with Clayton Howard. Clayton Howard was the first host that I remember listening to the DX Party Line back then. But man, that brings back a lot of memories. Levi Nathan, nice to have you on board from Israel. Daniel, I have a realistic DX370 that was produced in the year of 1991. After opening the body, the circuit board was stamped St. Gian 202. What other brands did Radio Shack use to sell as their products? I know that on the shortwave radio side, St. Gian was a big provider of radios that were branded realistic. And they had a few models that was made also by GRE, which was also the makers on the scanner side of things. So a lot of scanners that Radio Shack sold were actually GRE scanners, branded Radio Shack or realistic, depending on models. There's a couple of Uniden scanners also that were branded as realistic or Radio Shack. But, most of what Radio Shack did was made by other manufacturers for the most part. And then they were rebranding them as realistic or Radio Shack, depending on the models that you had back in the days. Oz Dreamtime Wizard, nice to have you on board from Australia. New to shortwave SDR and about to build 80-meter line antenna. Is a electrical fence tape. What would be the best option to use? Insulated copper. Anything metal makes a great antenna, honestly. Anything metal makes a great antenna. So whatever you use is going to be fine, for sure. Yeah. Yep, the International Radar Report. Oh man, there's so much stuff. Pretty crazy. Yeah, 14:30 UTC, the International Radar Report, with Sheldon and me. Dire Havoc, nice to have you on board from South California. Oh, I didn't even know that BBC had a DX type program at some point. Mad Radio DXer, I don't know if FRS All-In can be received in North America, but they do a DX show when they are on the air. Also, I think one of the programs on Channel 292 is dedicated to DXing. Yeah, I believe there are a few things there that are interesting. But it's a tough copy here in North America. WF7I Homebrew, happy to be aboard from rural Virginia. Happy Saturday. Question: do you ever run your RSP1A via Windows remote desktop? Any difficulties with this? I tried it last night, okay, but some latency. So yeah, I did do that quite a few times. The problem that you have using Windows virtual desktop is a remote desktop, sorry, is that unless your connection with your router is fantastic, it will actually lag a lot. So I had that running. It runs better if you have a router that you can actually connect to the 5 gigahertz frequency range, because it has more a wider bandwidth for the Wi-Fi, for example. It actually will work much better on 5 gigahertz than 2.4. At 2.4, one of the problems is that the bandwidth for everything that the remote desktop has to do, and the fact that remote desktop was not made for you to run such a a software that has so much things going on at the same time, that unless your connection is perfect, and I do mean perfect, you get to a point where you have lag, you get to a point where you'll have some delay, and you'll click to do something, and it's like, wow, there's 2 seconds delay before it actually did something there. So you got to do it with 5 gigahertz for the best speed if you do it on Wi-Fi. The only way that it actually works usually pretty well is when your network, your home network, is all Ethernet cable connected, because now the speed is like always good. And of course, I did it a few times for the purpose of being able to actually use my SDR when I'm in the kitchen, for example, stuff like that. But unless your connection is perfect, it lags at some point. And with Wi-Fi, the biggest problems is for standard use, just browsing the web, looking at YouTube videos. Even though you're far away from your router, as long as your connection is decent, it's fine. But remote desktop using an SDR actually requires a constant flux of data that is so high that as soon as you move away and you're on Wi-Fi and the signal drops, it also means your bandwidth drops. So as your signal goes lower, your bandwidth also goes lower. And what happens is that you start getting more and more lag. So it's not the best way to use the SDR in general. Hugo, nice to have you on board. And he's got a Texan PL990. Nice to have you on board from Brazil, my friend. So it works, but it lags. Like I say, there is definitely a lag. Come on, Paul. Everybody wants to see you. Get that. Paul the cat is in the house, wondering should he or should he not come on the chair. So pretty cool. PHX. No, this is just a stream on the internet. But sometimes we got pirates that do rebroadcast the audio. Steve Sadel, nice to have you here. Mickey Dalmich says just found a tape with the DX party line that mentioned the CIDX barbecue. Ow, that's Paul the cat with his claws in my leg. And here's Mr. Paul for everybody's enjoyment, and I'll be able to leave and let Paul control the show for the rest of the night. So that's interesting. So mentioned CIDX barbecue west and east at Sheldon and Don's. We were going to try to make a ham contact between us. Oh man, I remember. I not necessarily hearing it there, but I remember when you guys had that on each side, and there was kind of a ham radio thing going on. That was possible. I remember. I think I was reading that probably in the CIDX when I was a member back in the 90s or something. RGA Dakota says, I remember DX Jukebox on Thursday nights on Radio Netherlands. Wow. Brings back a lot of memories. Absolutely. Absolutely. All the old recordings of shortwave stations, they bring back so much memories. It's just crazy. Just crazy. What else do we have? What else do we have? What else do we have? Henry Cross, what frequency for what? Chastank, nice to have you on board from Louisville, Kentucky. Steve, also use the MLA 30 for FM. Would USB voltage off works for my SDR. Interesting. Is there a good app for decoding weather facts? FLDG works great. Multi-PSK works great. And if you're looking for an app, there's Black Cat Systems as a weather facts decoding app for Android, and I believe for iOS also, for Apple iPhones. Try 5 gigahertz. You'll see a difference. And if your house is wired at connection, the lag is going to probably go away because your connected connection will actually give you always the maximum speed. Problem with Wi-Fi is it varies all the time. So your speed of Wi-Fi, the bandwidth that you get, varies. So you're using it, then it might drop a little bit. Anyways, the remote desktop on the top, you could see there's a certain number of bars that tells you how good the remote desktop connection is. It has to be always at the maximum. That's Mr. Paul. So special guest star, Mr. Paul's like saying, hey, hello, look at me. Take care. William Helms, nice to have you on board from Florida. Eric Cottrell, looking forward to a CIDX Barbecue West in 2022. I guess 2022. I don't think there's going to be there's not going to be much of a barbecue this summer for CIDX again. The only thing with 5 gigahertz on Wi-Fi is that you don't get the range that 2.4 does. But when you're connected well, it works great. It really works great. So this is the big cat that does demand a lot of attention all the time. Mr. Paul. He wants to answer back. He's looking at the keyboard, so he might actually answer, guy. And so, what's the name of that show? DX on Radio Netherlands? Christian, nice to have you here from Germany. Hey, Simplio. It's okay. Well, I had an okay week. Yeah, things went okay. It was very beautiful here, so I did have a lot of times of taking a few hours outside with the radios and just enjoying the beautiful weather. It's nice to have you here. Jim Gordon, nice to have you here from Scotland. Where do I look in the 1 gigahertz and above for activity and modes? The X jukebox, RJ Dakota. Okay. There's some stuff in there. There's an amateur band around 1200 megahertz. On 1090, you could listen to the plain transponders and have that position on a map. I did that a few times with the Android app. You have some satellites that are in the 1.5, 1.6 gigahertz range. It's a band that has activity, but it's very specialized activity. You won't hear, people talking, or you won't hear, anything analog. It's mostly all sorts of data transmissions and stuff that's above there. So, it always reminds me to the fact, or brings me back to the fact that I always thought that unless you're a specialized, a guy in receiving those dedicated signals, that finally any scanner radio that goes above 1 gigahertz is more of a scam to get you to dish out more money than anything else, which is always what I thought. So, DX Jukebox, do they have that? Is there a recording of that somewhere here? DX Jukebox. Is that radio Netherlands? I'm looking if there's anything online. Shortwave archives. So this is the signing on of Radio Netherlands. That's from 1974. That's why it's like that. That does remind us a lot of all sorts of things. Oh man, I forgot about that.
This is Radio Nederland, the Dutch World Broadcasting System in Hilversum, Holland. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, everybody. We're broadcasting to pleasure on 13.91, 13.97, 19.45, and 25.55 meters. That's on frequencies of 21570, 21480, 15415, and 11740 kilohertz, and to Europe on 49.63 meters, which is on a frequency of 6045 kilohertz. Now the news read by Nick Goldie. The event
the times. Anything else here? Interval signal. I don't see any recordings here. There must be somebody somewhere that's got a recording of that DX Jukebox show for sure. Mike, WDX50, nice to have you on board from Northwest Arkansas. What else do we have? Diaraphoc, yeah, but it's not the same thing as Shortwave. Simplio, I can recommend Wolfie apps. Use the HF WeatherFax for Marine, Droid PSK. Yeah, I have Droid PSK, RTTY, and SSDV. They do work quite well, absolutely. Definitely. But I think they're available only on Android now. Where the Black Cat Systems apps, I believe, are almost all available for both iPhones and Android. So it opens up for iPhone and iPad users also at the same time. Log 2112, I have Watkins Johnson equipment I was able to buy from my M60 and M48A5, well over 50 years old. Work fine as long as someone on the other end. Yep. Jim Gordon, and remember HCJB's the Party Line, where I first heard of this strange thing called the internet. I thought, what? This is overrated and will not catch on. Yeah, will not catch on. There will not be a guy from Canada making a live shortwave show on that thing called the internet. And so it's, yeah, one of those funny things of life. HCJB had also another one. They had a show that came later on. HCJB and video show with John Beck. I remember his name, John Beck. And what was it? Ham Radio Today or something? I think his show was Ham Radio Today. Radio Today. Remember that? Is there a recording of that? And I remember, I think John Beck also was part of the of HCJB. Let's try something here. If we do HCJB, John Beck, see what comes up. Nothing much. Shortwave. Just check it out here. Shortwave interval signal. Yeah, I don't have a lot of I'm trying to find anything else. I don't know why, but when I search for shortwave stuff, there's this weird channel called the official SWL channel that pops up everywhere. So, yeah, I think it was Am Radio Today, the show that they had, for sure. What else do we have? Man, Radio DX reference 1.5 gigahertz range. You can hear people talking on certain frequencies. It is used for aero services. I've received them with my patch antenna. Yeah. I never heard of anything about talking on those ranges. The only thing I heard was people talking, but on with images. On the ICOMs, especially, a lot of them have up converters for the above 1 gigahertz range. So they mix in with what's on the lower frequency range. Jaded Coda says Coast to Coast AM used to be great until George Norrie and High Heart Radio bought the production. Ever since, it's terrible. heavily censored and too much advertisements. Yeah. Simply, I can now say I am a FT8RX user, spent chump change, and I enjoyed it. Yeah, it's a nice app. You just need to kind of learn how to use it properly. For sure. Dead before digital. Can I plug a regular real type external antenna into my Sony ICF 7600 JR? I know the factory external antenna was active. I don't want to damage anything. Oh yeah, our real antenna will work fine, and we'll it's going to work fine. Eric Cottrell has that interval signal in a ringtone. Jim Gordon is the RFB45. You are playing Radio Netherlands worldwide internet's internal interval signal. No, it was a kind of a tape recorder thing. That was the video. Man, so much stuff back then. Hey Jim, nice to have you here from Rhode Island. Cap Destre, nice to have you here from Barcelona, Spain. More memories, absolutely. But yeah, you can use a regular reel-in antenna on the Sony, no problem. Man. Radio, yeah, North Sea. Yeah. That I was not there at that time, but I remember reading about it. Mika Dalmage have some snippets of DX Jukebox. It was hosted by Harry Van Gelder until Dix Pickman took over. I have a recording of the last show, but unfortunately they just played Hitchhiker's Guide to DX. Huh, okay. Yeah, Ham Radio Today with John Beck, I remember. And the song included like a CQDX or something like that in the intro song. Jeff King, nice to have you here from Florida. Says there's an HCJB Shortwave Radio fans. Name of the Facebook group. Lots of interesting posts about HCJB. Jim Gordon, greatest DX program, Sweden Calling DXer. They used to send a printed transcript of the program, required listening for DXers at the time. Man, yeah. I guess as the hobby slowly was fading, there's less and less interest in having some of these DX shows. Sweden Calling DXers. So here's a 1980 version of Sweden Calling DXers.
Welcome to edition number 1575 of Sweden Calling DXers.
I'll just let Paul the Cat go out.
Contributors. And this week we'll start off with some publications. First of all, Mickey Vasella has just published the third issue of External Services of African Stations. That's issued on a regular basis each March, May, September, and November as a free supplement for the subscribers to QTH Africa, which comes out every 10 days. External Services of African Stations is also available separately for 2 IRCs, and that's for airmail anywhere in the world. If you're interested, you could write to QTH Africa, Post Office Box 28250, Pretoria, 0132, South Africa. You've also asked Mickey about QTH Africa itself, because
take care, Don DXer.
Guide to changes in the African radio scene. We've received the first issue of the monthly reports of the Asian Broadcasting Institute. It's 7 pages in length, and this issues a comprehensive listing of schedules of various stations in China and Taiwan. A 12-month subscription costs 4,000 yen for overseas airmail, and they say that they want to be paid in yen, so you're going to have to go to your local bank and find out how much 4,000 yen comes out to in your local currency. If you're interested, you can write to the
Paul Robinson,
Asia
good evening.
Broadcasting Institute, CPO Box 1334, Tokyo.
So that was Sweden calling the Xers. So the MLA30 came for you today, Paul Robinson. The orientation that you give your loop is the lowest noise possible. So you put it up, make sure that you can actually turn it to test out, and you just position it so you have the lowest noise on your radio, and you leave it like that. That's the best way to use a loop when you don't have any rotor to turn it. You simply just turn it until you have the lowest noise possible, and you leave it like that. M1MBZ says, I last bought an IRC from the local post office in 1999. Well, last time I purchased an IRC. Of course, I do remember that every time going to the post office, getting IRCs meant that you always had to tell the person that they exist, because they would never find them. And then you had that old guy come from behind the counter and is like, yeah, they're in that book. I purchased them a few times, but man, they were so expensive. I remember I was lucky. There was I don't remember what. There was a station that asked listeners for some. They wanted to have some reception reports for a certain amount of time, because they wanted to know if they were actually making it in North America. And they had said that they would give gifts to those. And I remember when I did that, the envelope that I got in return had, I think it was 4 IRCs, and I was like, whoa, they gave out IRCs. This is so cool. But those were so expensive for what it was. I mean, oh man. So expensive for the time. It was totally crazy. I mean, we were getting screwed. And we were getting screwed because not only were IRCs expensive, but technically, one IRC was supposed to be airmail for one letter international. So technically, when a station said, hey, we're going to send you something back, but we need an IRC, they would ask 2 or 3 of them. So it's like, what? You want 3 IRCs to send that things back? 1 is enough. But, oh man, a lot of radio clubs back then also had all sorts of things. I mean, what's the other one here? So there's another one here, which is Sweden calling the Xers of January the 13th, 1970. Wow.
From 1200 to 1400 hours.
Oh, this one is only on one side.
According to Edward Easter Charlie, Appleton, Wisconsin, Kenneth Holt, Timberland, and Chuck Albertson, Daisy, Washington, United States.
John Braze, nice to have you here. Congratulations. KD9SFQ. Congratulations. Block 2112 has some slow scan TV on 14230.
15,212 kilohertz in Spanish until 0200 hours. And then continued in an unknown language. This report comes from Christian Bunsen of Hamburg in Western Germany.
That's a bad recording, but wow. Souvenirs from the old days. Radio Exterior de España, 11940. Let's check it out here. 11940. Let's check it out. Well, it comes in. Yeah.
En el tiempo de deporte, recién finalizado el partido de la selección española sub-21, Jorge Agüero, que le enfrentaba a Italia en la Eurocopa.
96-90 is even better.
Encuentro celebrado en Eslovenia, lugar que está cogiendo esta Eurocopa sub-21. Este partido era el segundo de la fase de grupos. En el anterior se ganó y la rojita.
So Radio Exterior de España, 11940, 96-90, pretty good. RJD Dakota, remember having to purchase IRCs for return postage all the time for various shortwave stations services. Jeff King, I used to go to the post office and county seat because my local post office was completely clueless. Oh, yeah. They didn't sell a lot of those because most of the times they had no idea what you wanted. Most of the times they had no idea. That's crazy. So, pretty crazy. Pretty crazy. What else do we have? Let's check out here, just out of curiosity. Any pirates are active right now? Let's look at pirate activity. So we are at 2205 UT. So WEAK was spotted at 6933 upper sideband. Let's check it out. Upper sideband. Anything here? Yeah, I hear maybe something very, very weak. But not much. Not much. Still a little early. Doesn't seem to be that much pirate activity right now on the 6900 kilohertz range. So that's interesting. So remember, guys, that tonight we are changing our schedules. It's the A21 schedule season that starts at 0 UTC tonight, North America time. So that means that starting at 8 p.m. Eastern, 0 UT, your stations are not going to be where they are usually for the most part. A lot of them are going to use new frequencies. So that's important to understand, that if you don't hear your favorite station at a specific time, it might be because of the schedule changes that are coming up at 0 UT tonight. And apart from that, we're going to have a series of videos this week where we're going to talk about what's coming up, and what I'll be noting down the frequency. So all the usual resources that you have, the IBI space, shortwave.info, and so on. The schedule is to a few weeks, so it will take a little bit of time for all the schedules to actually be fixed. That means starting tonight, the best bet is to just tune around the bands and see what's up at one time. And for a few days might be the best thing to do, actually. I'm not Chuck, nice to have you here. So just remember that new schedules are starting at 0 hours Universal Time tonight. Apart from that, of course, we'll be looking at whatever stations. I would remind everybody that you should simply check out the Voice of Iran, see if they're still there tomorrow or in the week to come, just out of curiosity. See if they still broadcasting. I haven't heard any special announcements that they were leaving, but just in case. Brian B says 6933 upper sideband is 5-7 to 5 to 9 in Minnesota, playing music. So cool. Any content? What is the best shortwave radio receiver? Well, there's no such thing as the best shortwave radio receiver, but there are several good models out there. Depends how much you want to spend. That is always the first question: how much money you want to spend, because it depends what you want. Log 2112 TAH, the CW, the channel marker from TAH Istanbul on 8430 week. Let's try it out here. I haven't tuned to them in a while. You should hear, so let's check it out. Istanbul. Oops. Seems to be pretty quiet here. Hey, Ricardo, nice to have you on board from Portugal. Texan receivers are great for price versus performance, like the Texan PL 660, 680. XH data D808. Yeah, I heard it weekly, but I heard the packet bursts. Oh, here it is. It's not very strong though, but it's there. So this is a channel marker. It's a maritime station. So TAH in Morse code. TAH in Morse code. That's on the Texan PL990X, by the way, because I haven't set up the audio here for the console. So it's there. It's there. Yeah, absolutely. Let me just check the schedules here. I want to check something. There's Greece that is very that isn't very far also on that frequency with its channel marker. So we have TAH Istanbul on 84. Let me just check it out here. So its exact frequency actually is 8434. There's SVO Greece on AD424. 8424. Here it is. 8423 upper sideband or 8424 CW. SVO Olympia Radio out of Greece. And it's sending out SVO in Morse code. So that's another maritime station in CW. So 8423 upper sideband or 8424 CW in your receivers. You might hear SVO maritime station sending out their ID and Morse code on that frequency. Hey, Glenn. Nice to have you on board. KB9IN. There's a lot of nice little receivers for sure. Log 2112, nothing from Greece. Oh, there's quite a few. There's the other one here. I'm going to try something. I'm going to tune through the 8 megahertz range out of curiosity and see what we can hear. So nothing on it. 416 for the Navtex. So we have SVO Greece. We have Turkey. What else do we have in here? Stanag on 8553. Some RTTY on 556. It's interesting sometimes to tune off in these bands. So it's a pretty quiet 8 megahertz band, but sometimes you hear some unusual stuff in there. Can tell you that. 8594 USB. 8594 USB. We've got something. Let me just go back there here. 8594. Can't say I hear anything really. Yep, Matt. Pirate on 6933 upper sideband. I tried earlier. I could hear very, very weak something there. Let's try that again. Yeah, there is something there. There is something there, but here I don't hear nothing really. There's too much noise in my area. I'm having a lot of noise lately in on the range. The frequency range is pretty crazy. I need to check out if I can maybe change the antennas or something, because it's crazy. TBD Exter 6933 upper sideband is 7. Or Dodd, nice to have you here. Art, and from New Jersey, K2ADC. Pretty cool. Jim Gordon recently bought the used Ethon E3. It's pretty poor. Lots of AM breakthrough on shortwave and birdies on AM. This terrible sync detector. Bad ergonomics too. Anyone else has that one? Yeah, I've heard quite a few people having the Ethon E3, which is also, by the way, known as the Grundig G3, which are the same radio. Robert Osborne, Radio Nacional, Amazonas, 11780. Let's check it out. 780. Some fading here. Extremely good. Extremely good. 11780. It's a pirate station. 6933 is WEAK pirate on that frequency. Somewhere. So it says UNID now. It was earlier was WEAK. Now it says UNID. Somebody just reported 555 Morse code 6960 upper sideband 6961 CW. No, that was at 0130 on March 25th. I don't know why it came up again. Probably somebody just like, it's kind of interesting. So 6933 pirate station on ID, so no identification right now. Kevin Wood, nice to have you here from Nova Scotia. Let's check the out of curiosity, because it's the CQ Worldwide WPX contest. I'm going to tune the 40 meter band, see what station we're going to get.
Lima Zero Hotel Mexico Kilo, you're 591157.
7148.
Thank you. Kilo 3 Zulu Oscar. Delta Lima.
Mr. Tango, USA Continent. Whiskey for Lima, India, Papa.
Whiskey 4 Lima, Italy, Papa. Your 59552.
Roger, 59018.
TQWPX contest, Kilo 3 Romeo Alpha, K3 Radio America. Are you looking again? 001?
That's 7189.8. Expo, nice to have you here.
371, 371. Roger. Thank you, India,
It's Italy station. 7189, 7189.8, lower sideband.
My number.
The station from Italy.
139. 129, thank you, India, Oscar 4X3. 4 Mexico 5914889. Look, Radio America.
TQWPX contest, Kilo 3 Romeo Alpha, K3 Radio America.
TQ contest, Whiskey 3 Lima, W3 Lima, contest.
Victor Echo 3 station.
Victor Echo 3, Charlie. Contest listening on 7057. 7057, Whiskey X-Ray 3 Bravo. Whiskey X-Ray 3 Bravo, 7057.
So that's kind of cool. Checking out a few stations on 40-meter band. 40-meter band. Hey, Vitor, nice to have you here from Portugal. Pretty cool. So, kind of a quiet day. What else do we have here? Let me just check out. So don't forget, guys, new schedule season tonight. That's going to mess up your schedules. And anything else that I have here? Nothing much. So, yep, this is the WPX contest. Absolutely. Secret Worldwide WPX contest this weekend. Absolutely. So, hey, guys, we're going to cut it a little shorter than usual today. A little tired, but we've been 2 hours and 24 minutes. Hope you enjoyed the show. I'll be cooking my chicken hamburgers for the night. And I'll probably be back on the Facebook group, and I'll be tuning more of the contest. I'll probably be tuning at 0 UTC a little more of what's going to be happening in the new summer schedules, sorry, for the A21 season. So the only bad part of the show, the end. It has to end, unfortunately, yes. So take care, everybody. Hope you enjoyed the show today once again. And we'll be posting some of the frequencies and stuff we hear for A21 in the Facebook group also at the same time. And hope that everybody enjoys. If you want to kind of learn to tune your single sideband portable receiver, go to the ham bands with the contest. There's tons of stations. It's going to give you some practice to tune the single sideband signals on your portable radio. So take care, everybody. Stay safe. And of course, we are live twice a week on Wednesday, 8 p.m. Eastern, 0 hours UTC. Thursday for a lot of people. And Saturday at 4 p.m. Eastern, 20 hours UTC. So take care, everybody. Love you all. Stay safe. See you soon.